Alrighty, I'm gonna kick you out. I think my dog wants to be a part of this darn video. What's up? Come here. You come here. I want your paws. Give me your paws. Good girl. Yeah. What's up, honey? I know, Rose isn't here. Rose isn't here. It's very confusing. I think she thinks that I'm about to leave. That's probably what the problem here is. You gonna let me do my video? Okay, off. Girl, go to bed. Down. Good girl. And show. I'm Milo Moves. I started this YouTube channel in order to go on adventures, pretty much, is the whole idea. Perhaps the best way to go about this is to detail the line of events. So, let's start off with what happened? Here's what happened. First, I started this YouTube channel.
What if we tried to figure out what a adventure? We probably need an adventurer's kit. So I ran through a quick list.
Rucksack. Axe, even though that's totally inaccurate. Second, I want to go on an adventure. And there is an archaeological society that's pretty close by.
It said allegedly there is a population of black jaguars. No, I'm pretty sure they're supposed to be pumas, but I guess they're kind of different.
That adventure, I don't know. I don't know what it looks like. It is something interesting. It's something fun. Just needing a place to go and have a good time. Then I end up finding something to do. The Fort Bend Archaeological Society. I have been a part of museums in the past. Docenting at museums, seeing how they did their excavations and stuff, and I saw the Archaeological Society here and was like, hey, I want to go check that out. Turns out that their phone number is disconnected, so it started a whole little adventure. Next, I ended up actually scheduling a time to go to the museum. It was perfect. There was nobody there, and I mean, I guess here's what I saw, and this is what the museum lobby was like, and this is, I guess this is it. This is my first video. Enjoy. As you can see, I've switched feet now. So, the Fort Bend Museum, I'm not going to get into a whole lot of depth on the history of it, but to give you guys a synopsis, it kind of covers the history of Texas from the 1830s, probably about the very early 1800s to, pretty much to the early 21st century, 1940s or so. That's kind of the timeline that we're looking at. So pretty broad timeline, and it goes over the history of, Fort Bend, which is fairly rich with history. I can tell you that there's a lot of things that happened in this region for a long time. Obviously, not just from the settlers. There's a ton of history that I don't even have any idea of what looks like from the Native American tribes that used to live in this region. The first settlers of this region had embarked on a ship, a schooner, I believe called the Lively. They took this ship down to what was supposed to be the Colorado River, meeting up with, I believe it was Stephen F. Austin. Yes, Austin, Texas. That's the guy that we're talking about here. Stephen F. Austin, they were supposed to meet up with him in San Antonio at the time when they were originally, Austin was pretty much selling land. They ended up hitting a really gnarly storm and got stuck into another area and found the Brazos River instead. So they, cobbled up a couple of canoes, took a rowboat, and they went up the river and eventually found a place to stay. So they went ahead, they hobbled together a place, a lodge with, just some basic necessities and supplies and whatnot. They just pretty much set up shop. That's kind of how it happened. It was really more or less a mistake, and it's kind of what grew into what is now the greater Sam Houston area, which is pretty fantastical. That's all stuff that's explained in the main lobby area. I'm not going to get super in-depth into any of the history with it, just because I want the actual experience to be, felt by the participant. As you can see, the standard issue kitty has decided to join me here. But that's a welcome addition. We've got standard issue kitty and Cocoa Pup over here. And so we got the family. The actual tour itself parked on two parts. It was the Longsmith Cottage, some of the outer area of Longsmith Cottage, between that area and John Moore House. A lot of history there. They have, what they suspect is like an old grain thing. So there's actually 3 different mysteries that would be really cool to find out about. Obviously, some of which we don't ever know if we're actually going to be able to solve, but super cool stuff. And that's really what I want to get into in this video. But before we get into that, get into the Longsmith Cottage. Longsmith was, one of the participants there in Rosenberg, in that area, for a long time. And he had a family there. They ended up passing away at some point. I'm not sure the whole story of it off the top of my head, but it's a pretty famous piece of history. It goes back with Jane Longsmith. I believe she was down in Galveston for a really long time. They ended up moving to that cottage. In essence, that's just a really large piece of the history around here. John Moore House, same thing. John Moore was both a farmer, he was also he was a part of the government. They ended up becoming fairly wealthy over the years. They had a large house staff. Their house went through some remodeling throughout the years. It was built in 1860 or so, and was finished in 1905. So that kind of goes to show how many changes ended up happening on it. It started off as a Victorian house, and John Moore ended up going to Washington, D.C. at one point, fell in love with the, revival classical architecture in that region, and decided that he wanted to bring some of that here as well. So started remodeling the house, and that ended up changing a lot of the dynamic of the house as well. So I've got 2 interesting other things. So, well, 3 actually. So first of all, and this is probably the lower end one, is that there is a grain mill, what they suppose is the centerpiece to a grain mill, sitting there at just one of the spots. They have a couple of grain wheels sitting there as well. I immediately identified them as some sort of, a mill wheel, and I was surprised that I actually knew what it was, but this grain mill ended up not ever having any history to it. The family's oral history was lost to whatever that was, so nobody really knows exactly what happened with that. But obviously it was just a farming piece, so nobody really bothered with it. Second interesting thing here is there is a portrait of one of the family members of John Moore House that is not present. Now we have other pictures and portraits of this gentleman. We don't really know where it's at. It's with some family. We're not sure. Probably an extended part of the family. For all we know, it could have been lost. Really, nobody has any idea. So, portrait for sure. And the last one is the most interesting. Is, I believe, so one of the family members, Deaf or Deef Moore, he got that name because when he was younger, he got sickness and it ended up taking his hearing. He was deaf for the most part, but he was very well acquainted with the region of Fort Bend and really just most of Texas and this whole area. He was very well known, and when you go and see the headstone which I'll probably try to add a picture of here if I can. If you go see the headstone, he actually was a spy, and his whole deal was making sure that, because he knew what was going on. So he was asked by one of the Texas state governors when they were first starting this whole revolution deal. They actually asked him, "Hey, can you go and look around because you're well acquainted with this area?" During the Battle of San Jacinto, he was actually the guy that burned down the bridge that would have allowed the Mexicans to escape if they had known that they were about to get ambushed and overwhelmed. So Mexican army got totally slaughtered there. It's kind of a crazy story if you guys are aware of that. So this man lived a pretty fantastical life. And by the word of mouth, he had apparently been buried in a certain area, which has since been built over by a road. So, using ground-penetrating radar, the Archaeological Society has made multiple attempts to find his body in that area, but they can't. So they put up an honorary stone that is kind of in the same area that he would have been buried, but we're really not sure where he's buried at. And the house, the Long Smith house, had been put there before they realized that death was even there in the first place. So that's kind of a crazy detail to think about. There's a good chance that, that cottage is actually sitting on a dead body. Now, last but not least is the good old ghost story. Gotta love a good old ghost story. So I'll go ahead and let that play here in a second. But before we do, they apparently have got plenty of history with ghost stories and stuff like that. And in October, Fort Bend Museum actually has, kind of a spooky event that they have going on. I don't know what it's called. I'll probably add it here or here. Go check it out. It's super cool. Milo Moves, your local adventurer. I'm a thing. I'm a thing.
Pretty different now.
Right.
Our entrance is here, but it used to be on Houston Street in this area.
Gotcha.
So
Okay.
where we were standing used to be our office space, so where that is today was actually here in this corner. So this is the original building.
Okay.
From this wall all the way where
All the way over there. Okay.
But this used to be our office space here, and we were all having a conversation. Because this was our workroom. We were doing exhibit stuff here, and so I just happened to be talking, looking out towards the gallery space because we have a doorway.
That way.
And as I'm talking, this man just walks right into the gallery, and we didn't hear the door open or anything, because the doors would have been where this oil rig is.
Gotcha.
And so I stop mid-sentence and immediately start running out to go follow him. And I walked all the way around. It was a U-shape exhibit space. And I come back, don't see anybody there. And then my coworkers come out because they were like, just stopped mid-sentence and left us hanging.
They're like, why'd you just wander off like that?
And so I told them, I said, I saw a man walk into the gallery space and he's not here.
Yeah, that's